Welcome to Doing the Most, the series where we talk about the misadventures of entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Georgie, execution strategist and serial entrepreneur. This series is here to get real about what entrepreneurial life truly looks like. We are driven, persistent, hardworking, ambitious. We are human, and these are our stories. Welcome back to the Misadventures of Entrepreneurship. Today, our very special guest that we have is Daryl Holman, and he is an entrepreneur, a creative, a doer, and just someone who all around loves figuring things out and getting stuff done. So Daryl, could you give us a little bit of an introduction about who you are and kind of what brought you to being on the podcast today? Like what kind of adventures have you had so far?
Thanks for having me on. I usually start my story with, so I'm from Michigan originally, and then I kind of took a pivot in my life. So I was studying public administration in grad school, and I couldn't find a job over the summer. So then rather than just sitting and trying to figure things out, I just got on YouTube and taught myself web and graphic design. And then after I finished left school, I came to New York, and what I found was that people were more interested in me doing design than they were in what I had studied during school. And then that kind of led to me pivoting into technology. So I did coding classes at the Harlem Business Alliance and at the Knowledge House. And then that's kind of what led me to doing a freelance. So now I do freelance web and graphic design. And then from there, I kind of, use those skill sets to start Freespot.co. Which is a web platform for people to find and share free things with each other. And then so that kind of is what led me to this podcast. I've been seeing what you've been doing with the book and everything. And I was like, okay, all right, she's active, she's making moves. And I think, a lot of what you stand for, I stand for as well. So that's what gravitated me towards, being here today.
Nice. Thank you. And I don't know if you said it, but what were you studying at grad school before you left?
Public administration.
Okay. And do you think do you think you're going to go back to finish? Because, from the conversation so far, it sounds like you didn't finish. You just left before it was over to kind of find opportunities. But do you think you're going to go back? If so, why or why not?
I left before finishing. I was actually 3 classes away from finishing. And that's when I moved out to New York. And it was just the biggest headache in the world to get those last 3 classes finished. So you'll see from my LinkedIn and stuff, it says MPA now. So finally got all the work done. This was just this past fall. So it was I was out here for 2 and maybe a half years. Just finishing up those last 3 classes, but finally got it done. Reason being, not completely sure. I was just so close to finishing, it just made sense to wrap it up. But hopefully somewhere in my future it'll come in handy. But until then, I'm glad I got it done. I think my mom is really proud of it. So I guess that's enough for me, maybe. Yeah.
I definitely hear that, and I definitely resonate. So just getting it done, because if it would feel, especially 3 credits, if it was 20 credits, maybe leave it alone. But 3 credits, you're right there. 3 credits, one class, or 2 classes or something. All right, so congrats that you got that done. And I definitely understand families wanting to just have that as yes, my son or my grandson has this, certificate or this kind of degree, and that means something. It's clout for the family.
Yeah.
And it's really funny that you say your mom is kind of for your mom. What's his name? Adam Newman from WeWork. He actually graduated in my class at Baruch. So the 2017 class, that's when he graduated with us. And it was funny because he came back because his grandma wanted him to finish. He was telling us the story of how he's already a multimillionaire from the WeWork empire. But now, he's here finishing up his undergraduate at Baruch. And so, just seeing, he's like, my grandma's like, when are you going to go back to school to finish, because I think he said like either she paid for it back in the day and like he just never finished because he started different businesses and he, went out and pursued his ideas. But at the core, he really wanted to make his grandma proud and his family proud. So here he is, multimillionaire, going back to finish up a bachelor's degree. So just sometimes, that pressure is there, especially I think a lot of times, especially if you do entrepreneurial things, that pressure is there even more because they want you to have some type of security blanket, right? Just to be safe, because families, they're supportive and they just want you to be okay. So now tell me a little bit about Freespot. Why did you create this? Like why does this platform matter? And like, how is it going to impact or create value for the people that come across it?
So it started back in high school. Me and my friend, we never had money for lunch. So we would like actually wait near the trash can when people would they would like throw away their food, or if they hadn't used it, they would just leave it up on this counter. And we would take that food and store it in our lockers, and that's how we would eat for the week. And then so it was just that experience taught me that like even where like there's excess, there's also like a lot of need having it as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then so the same thing was happening in college. We actually had like a little group chat, and whenever there was like free food on campus, we would just like hit each other up and like we would just bring bags and like take the food back to our dorm rooms. And then that kind of like prompted the ideas like what kind of technology can we do or can we create to organize ways to share resources in ways that they haven't been shared before. And that kind of led me to this. So I guess like what I hope that people get out of it is, people who either if you just don't have money to buy stuff or you just don't want to buy stuff, being able to find someone who isn't using something that you need and being able to get access to that for free. That's like the biggest thing that I want people to take away from the platform. Yeah. And then and for myself, I think the biggest thing that I want to I'm enjoying the experience of going through this process of entrepreneurship and this thing of like launching, so since the web platform is up, going through the experience of like learning how to deal with problems that arise as you're taking a web platform and then bringing it into app stores. And so like having to go through that experience, I think I'm learning a lot, having a lot of fun with it. And just continuing to grow both as like an entrepreneur and as a leader in general. So like that part I'm enjoying from.
Nice. And what's the scariest part about building this? Because, you talked about all the good stuff. Like what is like your fear or like the scariest thing that you see that could come out of like building this?
I think the fun thing about this for me is like I don't really have fear about it. I mean, because like the worst thing that can happen is that I fail. I failed film class in college, so like I think that we literally watch movies every day. Like, how do you fail that class? So I think having experiences like that and like having failed before, it's just something that I kind of grew out of. I grew out of like having fear for like starting new endeavors. I think if I had to choose something that does scare me, it's like people using my platform responsibly. Because people are sharing things with new people, like the value of the platform is like being able to meet and share with people outside of your network. So then like that means that they have to create that exchange between themselves and making sure that people handle like that responsibility and like take it very seriously. And they're not doing all the crazy things that you hear about and whatnot. So like that scares me, and that's something I think about a lot. And I think about different ways that I can like work around or work to create safety for the people who are using the platform.
Nice. And I definitely think it could have a lot of impact because, everyone wants to know where free stuff. I did the same thing like in college too. Like, okay, we have this group chat. There's a free pizza day in the plaza. Who's coming? Like, want some, want me to say something for you. And I think, as you mentioned, people misusing the platform could be one of like the scarier parts of it in terms of not even just people. So people taking things that like exchanging things that they don't need and then going to sell that thing. So, it misses the opportunity for the actual person who needs it to actually get the free thing versus the resources being allocated in the wrong way. Cause not for nothing, that's how like a lot of like nonprofit resources that are supposed to be going towards, the needy or the homeless or hurricane relief, they get taken by people that can afford the service or the tool, the people that can afford it or can purchase it some other way, they use it. And then the people that truly, truly need it, they never get to take advantage of it because there's none left by the time it gets to them. So I'm glad you guys are like thinking about ways to making sure that people are secure on the platform, because again, that's like one of the main things that people really get what they need out of it. Have you ever launched anything entrepreneurial before this venture, or is this like your first thing?
So this is like my first like launch. So like currently like I do a freelance web and graphic design full time. So like there was like the transition of going from like working full time to that, but I haven't like launched a product or I guess freelancing is a service, but I haven't launched a product before. So like learning all the things that go into that. So like before it's just kind of you and you're providing your service. But like now it's like going through like testing. That's like a huge thing. And you just don't know like what isn't working on your platform, and you can go through it 10 times. And someone who like is using your platform for the first time is going to find new errors that you like didn't know were there. So it's just constantly learning like how do we test better. So like I have some software installed on the back end of the site that allows me to like see how people use the platform. So it's just like all right, so like when people go in to test it out, like, all right, what issues are they running into that like they don't know are an issue, and they're not able to like speak to me about, and like learning to catch things like that, so that when you do like an actual public launch, you're not running into big issues.
That's really good. So that way you guys are like preparing as much as you can to make sure that it goes smoothly. I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about your transition from being a full-time employee to doing freelance, especially like this sounds, close to when you finished your MPA. So the average person might say, oh no, I'm going to stay. I'm going to use my degree. I'm going to secure the bag that way versus, oh, I'm just going to go out on a limb of faith and hope everything goes okay. And, this freelance thing works out. So could you tell us a little bit about like what that experience was like, and what overall made that like put that final nail in, like, and said, yes, this is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to do freelance and focus on that, because you stumbled into freelance just as like happenstake, because that was what people were going to pay you for at the time. But now that you have your degree, this is what you went to school that time for, you're going to pursue the thing that you got by accident versus like the degree. So could you talk a little bit about that process and like the why behind that?
Sure. I think I was very blessed in my transition to New York. Not many people come here and like come into a community like the Harlem Business Alliance. And then through them, being introduced to the Knowledge House. So like I was like plugged into two really tight knit and like very supportive communities. So that's kind of what prompted the transition. Because they both were very like influential in like in terms of like making sure that I had clients. And what was happening was like the client work was like piling up. And because it's freelance, I could charge more than I was like making, working at Harlem Business Alliance. So it just it became very hard to do both. And then I was also still doing classes at the Knowledge House at the time. So not only was I working full time, I was freelancing, which is like adding up to like almost like a full time worth of labor. And then on top of that, I was also doing like a programming class. So like I was driving myself nuts. But then on top of that, it was just like they were very supportive in terms of like me going turning to entrepreneurship and doing freelance. So it's just kind of something that happened naturally, and it just kind of made sense. But like I really am like thankful for like their support through that transition. Because like without either of those entities, like it wouldn't have worked. I wouldn't have been at this point. So Yeah, so that's kind of like what prompted it, and like, what has sustained me, because I've been doing it for like 2 years now. So yeah, couldn't have done it without their support.
Nice. So definitely having things work hand in hand and like having that support is key, because a lot of times people will jump into the the from the full-time job to the freelance, but they don't have like a bridge to connect it. I've seen so many people, oh, I'm going to quit my job, but they don't have anywhere to go, so to say. I think there's a big misconception about like when to quit your job, or when, I think don't quit your job unless your side hustle or your freelance thing is becoming more full-time. Like it's like demanding that you be there full-time versus, oh, I'm just going to quit and then like try to make it become full-time. It's better to have it be needing you before you actually like need to get there and like quit the job. Because I've seen, again, so many people that just up and quit their job without their business having like already a demand, and they just need to provide the supply, and then they're like struggling or not sure what's happening, or like, why is it not working? And it's like, you quit your job for a side hustle, and a side hustle can't maintain you. Quitting your job for your company, or, your full-time freelance thing that has clients that need you, or more clients that are ready to book you, but you just don't have availability. That makes sense, because you've already built somewhere to go. You have to have that like flow and like that traffic coming in before you up and quit your job. There's certain special cases where unless you quit your job, you won't have the time to build out that foundation. But again, that requires you saving up, making sure that you're good to go, because we have to not pretend like having food in our mouths or like having a comfortable home is not important things.
I think,
yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think what I try to tell people to do is just like, because what I find is like when people want to quit their job, like they want to be free, and like so like at the end of the day, like they kind of like make their own decision, because people ask me about it a lot. But like a lot of like what you're saying, it's just like making sure that they understand what it's really going to be like, and then not just making that decision like out of like trying to escape.
Yeah, because a lot of people don't realize you're quitting the 40-hour to work like 60 hours sometimes. And if you don't put in that work, ain't no food on the table, my friend.
Exactly.
And then dealing with customers before, wherever you're working, probably had, customer service department, an HR department, an accounting department. Guess what? You are HR, customer service, like you are everything, especially in those early stages. And even if you have employees under you, I doubt, you're going to quit your job and start running like a $1 million company or $1 billion company where you could be so far disconnected from the day to day and just like do your thing. You're still going to have to be involved. Like decisions have to be made, and you have to verify things, be the face of the company. And just, there's so much that goes into it that people think that you're just quitting their jobs for this like weird idea of freedom. It's just you're just choosing your prison this time. That's it. You made it so that way you could at least have some type of flexibility of maybe, oh, I want to walk in the yard today. Yes, but as this show is called The Misadventures of Entrepreneurship, I know you haven't been too deep into it, but so far, what do you say is your biggest misadventure of being an entrepreneur? Something that maybe went completely haywire, that was unexpected. It doesn't have to be bad or negative. It just has to be, a misadventure, and it could be like a learning experience that you gain from being an entrepreneur. It could be from your freelance, from Freespot, wherever.
I think the biggest misadventure, or like, I think, it's just, I think it would be the journey of it. And not having like people tell you what it's like, but you don't like really, your mind isn't processing it all until you actually go through it yourself. I think the biggest thing was like the timeline in terms of like Freespot. So like in terms of like, all right, so like I told you about like why I created it. But like, so it's been like a long journey just to like even get like the web platform up. So in the Harlem Business Alliance, I got like a splash page up. So it's just like a site to tell people like, all right, here's this idea that I have. And then so like in my mind, it's like, all right, so once I go freelance, like 3 months, I'll have like an app going up. So here we are. like 2 years later, and working on like trying to get hopefully into the Android store by the end of the week, and then the Apple store like maybe like at the end of the month, early next month maybe. But I think the journey, so like I took the web development classes, but the thing is I was just stronger at design. And like I wouldn't even have got to this point if it wasn't like for the person who does the back end now. He just randomly came and he was like, "Yo, I like your idea," and he's like, "I started putting together the back end for it." And then it was just like out of happenstance. So like, let's say he never does that, I'm never at this point with Freespot. So it's just like you just don't know how things will come together, and you don't know like the actual true timeline of like how things like when they will come together for you. And I just wouldn't have put like the timeline I wouldn't have expected it to be so long. But like through that long journey, it's still been learning along the way. You don't think about like the different issues that people run into on your platform. I remember one of the things that we did partner with another organization in the South Bronx to do like a prom dress drive. And then so we started doing the social really hard to get people to like, all right, let me go into my closet and let me take a picture of my prom dress. So in that way, these people can pick it up and like take it to young women who, might need it. And then what I realized is that people who like originally signed onto the platform, there was like 12 people who couldn't get back in because we had no lost your password function. And like, so like, as you're doing things for the first time, you just when like they're saying like, oh, this is how you create a login form. Make sure you create like a lost your password feature. You're thinking like, oh, everybody's going to save it like in my computer's cookies or whatever. But the thing is like a lot of people are just signing on for the first time to support you. They're not signing on to be like lifelong members of what you're creating. Yeah. And then so you run into issues like that, and it's just, you just don't know what you don't know going into it. And, trying to make sure that you're writing down, taking notes to learn from your experience. And that way, whether you continue to do this or you do it a second time, that you don't have to make those mistakes again.
Definitely. And I want to touch back to what you said to start off this like topic of timelines. I think so many people, they underestimate by a long shot, honestly. I've learned the very hard way. And so what I do, and I think, okay, I could do that in 2 weeks. All right, I'm going to tell the person I'm going to do it in 6 because shit happens. And, between life happening, the technology breaking, servers being down, there's so many things that can go wrong. And you're just like, why does the world hate me right now? Like, what do you mean that can't connect like that? What do you mean I need a different plugin? What do you mean this code doesn't, what do you mean? So just like, definitely a big lesson for everyone out there listening is extend your timeline by at least 2.5 times whatever you think you need. And if it's finished earlier, kudos to you. Great job. Yeah. But you're going to need some extra time.
No, I would definitely agree with that. So like in transitioning the web platform to, so in order for it to go into like the app store, so it's built on React. So in order for it to go into the app stores, we need it in React Native. We didn't know that. So we're like, and then even once we knew that it needed to be in React, we didn't know like how thorough the process of, or like just how long the process of converting all that code would be. And then like, so we had to like I know from my end, so like I do the front end, had to style the entire thing all over. So like change the timeline drastically. I was like hoping that it would be in both by now. But just like not fully understanding and just kind of like gauging how things were in the past. I'm like, all right, here we can do in this amount of time. You just don't know like how that's going to change. But I think entrepreneurship is just like your ability to like kind of roll with the punches. Like, how can you figure out how to stay in the game, and how can you make it easier to stay in the game in the future for you?
Yeah, 100%. We are coming up to the end of our interview, and I definitely want to thank you for being here and giving your insight. A lot of the other entrepreneurs and folks that have been on the podcast are a little bit more further in their journey. But I like to have people come on and talk about, that early stage, because something that you might be doing right now is still enough education and enough feedback, so that way somebody that is just starting or is about to start could have some type of starting ground, to have that insight, that feedback, that understanding that it doesn't matter like how far along you are. It doesn't matter where you are. There's still going to be misadventures throughout every phase, and there's still learning opportunities. There's still opportunities for growth, and just seeing that no matter what part you are of the journey, whether you are 2 years in, 6 months in, or 10 years in, 15 years in, it's going to be crazy, and it's going to stay crazy. Like they say, it's like a roller coaster. And that doesn't mean that it's necessarily like failure or success. It's just the journey of being an entrepreneur. The fact that there's going to be misadventures at every phase. Every new thing that you come across, you're going to realize, wow, I didn't even know that was a thing. And now I broke that thing, and now we got to fix that thing. And now we got to pay this person. And just everything could happen. And just being able to hear those stories and hearing those adventures and misadventures from various entrepreneurs, I think is very important for you guys out there listening, to see and get that insight that you need. So Daryl, before we jump off, what is one final piece of advice or information or homework you'd like to give the audience out there listening to remember as they're embarking and continuing their entrepreneurial journey?
I think trust yourself. That's like the biggest thing, and something I still struggle with. That's major. It's always like you constantly kind of question, like, all right, is this the right journey for me? Am I doing the right thing? Am I making the right choices? You just got to learn to trust yourself and trust that, like even when you make mistakes, just, try to put your best foot forward. And like you're going to make mistakes. It's inevitable. It's part of the journey. But learning to trust yourself and learning to, like, even when you make mistakes, like, how can you learn from that? How can you better yourself in the future? And trust yourself with the ability to make better choices. And that's just the biggest thing that I've been trying to learn, and that I'm constantly trying to reinforce myself with. It's like written on my whiteboard at home, like trust yourself. I have like a candle. It says like trust your dopeness. So just you gotta know that you have the ability to get it done. And you gotta constantly believe it, because if you don't believe it, then no one else will.
100% agree with that, guys. So trust yourself. You got this. You're going to make shit happen. You're going to get it done, and you're going to be doing the most as an entrepreneur. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Daryl. And guys, we will catch you on the podcast. Same place, same time. We'll see you next week.
All right. Take it easy.
This has been a Gifted Sounds podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe, rate, and review. For more podcasts, please visit giftedsounds.com.